All right, top enrollers for last week.
All right, this is for February 9th through the 15th. No ties.
Nope. In second place, we have Tara Safran.
And in first place, we have Paige Wheeler. Congratulations. Great job. Thanks so much for sharing Solex with so many people and bringing them and hopefully, improving their lives and circumstances because they've learned more with either the scanner or one of our great products.
And hopefully they got free blue.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. That's what we want.
All right. Our contest last week, we're going to draw 3 winners right now. And we asked you, what's one small thing you could do this week to strengthen a relationship? And we're giving away AO pearls.
Pearls. Oh, like pearls. Giving somebody pearls. These are the ones you consume. All right, Lynette Straw. I would have to say that to strengthen relationships, listen. Just listen. People appreciate it and when they feel heard. That's so true.
Very true.
Yep.
All right, next. Okay, do I have one? Yes. Crunchy 613. Let us know who you are. One small thing I can do this week to strengthen a relationship is to truly listen without interrupting, fixing, or multitasking. Just being fully present, making eye contact, and letting someone feel heard can shift the entire energy between two people. Connection doesn't usually require something big. It's the small, intentional moments that build trust, safety, and closeness. Totally agree. Put down your phone. Listen.
Yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't take, it's nothing big. It just takes an effort to listen, right?
Yeah.
All right, last winner of pearls. Here we go. Rita Desmond. One thing I can do is to stop what I'm doing and listen to my husband when he's talking to me. It's true. Husband, spouse, friend, whatever, stranger even. Yeah, just stop what you're doing. Be present with them. I think I could do so much better with that.
So could I. So could we all. Thank you for all those great suggestions. And now let's turn the time over to Carlos Jaramillo.
We're meeting with the doctor. Lauren, he says, if you'd waited 6 more months, you and I would be having an entirely different discussion. I've been doing my scans, but there was one 9 that never moved. I didn't have any symptoms. I didn't have any issues that I was aware of. But my scanner was saying, hey, this, you need to pay attention to this. And that way I'm not letting something slip through the cracks. I'm not seeing a trend that I need to pay attention to. It might be somebody else here sitting in this chair telling you my story today.
My topic is finding the energy interference in the human matrix with AO scan. Sounds really difficult, but it's not. It is not, okay? Standing on the shoulders of what we have heard in the morning with these wonderful speakers, as I say, I would like to introduce the naturopathic view because I am myself a naturopath and I work with the basis of vitalism. Have you heard about vitalism? Yeah. Of course, vitalism is our essence. So it is very important for us to understand that we are threefold. We are a trinity. That's what we are. We're spirit, mind, and body. And all of these flows are continuously working. For our body to move, we need water, we need oxygen, we need air, we need movement. And we let food in, okay? And we let the residues go out. We drink, okay? For our circulatory system and lymphatic system, and then we let the residues go out. But then what happens when our subtle energy system gets entrapped with so many things that are attacking us from all around? We have to remember so that we are an integrated unit, and through that, the vital force is continuously giving us life. And I would like to introduce a concept that I wanted to say this long time ago when I had the first opportunity to be here on stage, I think a couple of years ago, about the autonomic nervous system. Because really the autonomic nervous system is the anchor in which our life flows, okay? It is our central control hub. The ANS is the master control system for involuntary functions. All of you know that we don't need to think for our heart to beat. We don't need to think for our lungs to breathe. And all the rest of the automatic functions that carries the autonomic nervous system. That is where the vital force is anchored, okay? We all know that our nervous system, and Deborah, by the way, she did an excellent lecture. She talked about our brain, okay? And a little bit down to the brain, projecting down, we have our central nervous system. We call the somatic nervous system. It's called somatic because we can control. I'm controlling the control. And it's a voluntary action. But then, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems are really what is really guiding us without us having to be involved in that process. So the ANS, autonomic nervous system, holds life since we are in the womb of our mother. There's some authors that even think that probably, even from beyond. But anyway, the ANS possesses a profound capacity to retain cellular and systemic memories dating back to our earliest embryonic development. This deep-seated memory continues influences physiological and psycho-emotional states our entire lives, shaping our responses to stress, and so forth and so on. If you ask a dermatologist, which is the largest organ in our body, they will say it's the skin. You've heard that, right? That the skin is the largest, 2 square meters. If you ask a pneumologist, he will say probably the lungs, because if you open up your lungs, your trachea, and you unfold everything, probably gets to 80 square meters. If you ask a gastroenterologist, it will truly say the gastroenterological system, because if you open up the stomach and the small intestine and the large intestine, it's 300 square meters. But did you know that our autonomic nervous system, okay, has been measured, and it is said that 20 or 40 kilometers of interwoven wire have been formed long before a piece of skin the size of a lentil or dental pulp has been constructed. The entire untangled network is long enough to circle the equator 12 times. That is what we have inside, okay? So the largest, pretty much largest organ, I can say the largest antenna is our autonomic nervous system. Look at Professor Gustave Rickert, dating back to 1817, 1948. He was a director of the Institute of Pathology in 1906 and 1933. He said every stimulus, regardless of its intensity, is not limited to the point of impact. Instead, it propagates like a wave along the pathways of the vegetative nervous system through the biological terrain of the connective tissue, generating irritations that can manifest as disease in distant parts of the body. The term vegetative, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, is the one that we use in South America and parts of Europe. Vegetative because it resembles the innervations of the leaf. It resembles like the little veins, okay, that run through a leaf, or the roots of a plant, and that is spreading all around our bodies. Also, Dr. Speransky, another Russian researcher, said there is no such thing as a local organ specific disease, like this organ is diseased or has this pathology. Every illness is a disturbance of the nervous system's trophic activity, and the body's terrain is what determines how this nervous irritation propagates and manifests as pathology. Speransky. So many years ago, okay? The vegetative system, or the ANS, is the driver of most healing processes and the primary carrier of life. These are the words of Dr. Ferdinand Hunnecke, who discovered neurotherapy back in 1940. So these are not new concepts. We do have a great tool here with AOScan, which is modern, up to date. Every time we are receiving updates, okay? But this understanding is what I would like you to convey to you so you can take this first giveaway, okay? This takeaway is important. The autonomic nervous system is the driver of most healing processes and the primary carrier of life. This Dr. Rolf observed and wrote about the phenomenon of emotional release. When she was working on her therapies, she realized that many clients would experience catharsis. Catharsis means the release of stored memories, okay? And when the body feels that it's safe to release, let go. When you go to the bathroom, you feel safe to release. In the middle of those therapies, she realized that some people, by pressing the body in a certain area, people would cry, would laugh, okay? Or would recall traumatic experiences, either or. And that happens to a lot of us when we are with our clients. So memory is not specifically in the brain. Memory is entangled and anchored in the autonomic nervous system, which is which is pervading all of our bodies. She talked about liberating fascia. Who is familiar with the term fascia? Fantastic, everybody knows that. So fascia is like a three-dimensional fibrous connective tissue, soft, loose, and dense, containing collagen, and extending throughout the body. From the fascia also, the autonomic nervous system has its extensions. In other words, the ANS innervates also fascia. And that's what gives us our flexibility and the word tensegrity. Probably you've heard about that one too. The first task of us naturopaths is to find where the flow of life is being blocked. If it is in the physical body, we have to release that flow of life. If it's in the mental body, well, we have inner voice and we have our Cephis. We can do wonders for people, okay? In that way, that flow of life can go back to the furthest areas where that flow of life has been denied of. So when the flow is interrupted, there's toxic insult, toxic accumulation into our, I'm going to introduce this word, matrix, okay? Matrix. Exposure to environmental toxins like heavy metals. How many of you have seen 2 or 3 heavy metals show up in your AOScan vitals? How many of you? And sometimes we see those things and we don't know at the beginning how it is detecting mercury, arsenic, iron as being heavy metal, okay? But I think in the morning, we got the explanation so clear from Dr. Lachelle, okay? It's bioresonance. Bioresonance. AOScan detects those heavy metals. AOScan detects those intoxications that are impeding the flow, the normal flow of the autonomic nervous system. Because also another thing happens when the deposition is so much, the flow can be deviated. Remember that our brain communicates through our organs, with our organs through the autonomic nervous system, okay? So if it is a disrupted communication, probably the organ is not going to function that well. Like in this case, for example, most of doctors today do not open the patient's mouth to see what it is inside. But they focus on the problem. Okay, this person has intoxication of the thyroid. This person has hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's or whatever. But they don't look for the cause. In our AOScan work, we have to look for the cause. And sometimes we need to inspect. Sometimes every day we have to inspect. We do have to check our patient from head to toe, starting up here. Is there anything that happened in the top of your head? Let me see? Is there lice? By the way, who has seen lice in their client's report? Have you ever seen lice in your report? Interesting. These toxins impede the ANS ability to communicate. For example, in that picture, if there's mercury embedded in the thyroid, if there is arsenic, if there's aluminum, how is this thyroid going to work properly? It's impossible. So where are these toxins come from? Sometimes the disruption of the vital force is causing that impaired regulation, okay? So these constant irritations of the autonomic nervous system is conducting to the disease. So the human matrix gets overloaded. For us, it's very important that whenever we see a deviation in the frequencies, for example, in the conception vessel of the meridians in the vital area of your AOScan, sometimes we see double red. And then double red means that there is an active problem going on there. The only thing we can do is ask the client. I always sort of amplificate on my screen, in my monitor, so clients can see. I always make it wider so they can see. And I ask. It's very important for you to ask because we're not fortune tellers with the AOScan. We're not. I'm asking, is there any problem in that pathway? Have you had a C-section? Do you have a piercing? Have you had a tattoo? What is there impeding the flow? And sometimes they let me see, like in this case, and of course there's going to be a 9 or a 1 if it's chronic. Remember, 9 is active, 9 is acute, 9 is now. 1, 2 is chronic, all time, okay? So the ultimate result is the systemic physiological imbalance, a reduced capacity for self-healing, and the emergence of various forms of chronic disease. How is this poor lady going not to be constipated? How is this poor lady how not to be having menstrual problems? How is this poor lady not going to be experiencing lumbar area pain? It's impossible because the life flow is impeded. Okay? So the matrix is more than just the structural support. The human matrix is what we have in between our cells. Okay? And the human matrix, often overlooked because doctors, regular doctors, do not look at that, of course, is a vibrant environment constantly interacting with our cells. It's not just a passive filler, it's a dynamic conductor of life itself. That's the matrix. Now you can see in this picture, there's neurons there, there's monocytes, mast cells, there is life. Everything is based by the lymphatic system. When we eat, when we drink, when we take our vitamins, when we take our food supplements, whatever, eventually it goes there. But nothing touches the cell directly. Put it down. Nothing touches the cell directly. There's not a fiber, a nerve, a terminal ending. There's not a lymphatic vessel that touches the cell directly. Everything is through a medium. Everything is through a milieu. And that milieu, that medium is called the matrix. So disruptions in the matrix and the structure are very much linked to inflammation. They're very much linked to cancer and degenerative diseases. So what is the human matrix? Also known as the extracellular matrix, also known the Pischinger's system, because it was studied by pathologist Alfred Pischinger. This complex, dynamic space surrounding and supporting every cell. It's composed of fibers, composed of proteins, glycoproteins, glucosaminoglycans, collagens right there, and it's forming a 3D biochemical and mechanical scaffold. Crucial for cell survival, communication, differentiation, and tissue homeodynamics. I'd like to use the word homeodynamics instead of homeostasis because there's not really stasis per se in our body. So the matrix is the functional unit of life. Remember that in high school, they would tell us that the cell was the unit of life? Maybe we can rewrite that concept. Really is the matrix because the matrix is very intelligent. Whenever a vitamin has to go from your mouth to the cell of your liver, the matrix of the liver has to open up and let that vitamin, that particle move on. Whenever you have digested, whenever you have had cellular metabolism, the exhaust, the remains, or the metabolic waste, it has to go through the matrix. And if that matrix is stiff because you don't move, if that matrix is stiff, filled with residue of cheese, of dairy, of pork, or fried stuffs, or sugar, it's calcified, it's going to be very difficult for the cell to regenerate. So the human cell is the most important biologic unit of the matrix. Think of the matrix as what is holding us together. Not only the old concept of interstitial space. Have you heard about interstitial space? I think everybody remembers that in high school or university we would learn about the interstitium. It's not simply a space between cells. It's a network of interconnected cavities formed by fluid-filled channels that transport information mediators from one place to another. That is how, when you apply an homeopathic frequency remedy produced in Cephi, and you put it under your tongue, it goes in seconds at light speed everywhere. This is why when you apply your band, your 660 band, okay, on a distant place, it travels, that light goes into the matrix, that light goes into the channels and travels at speed light. It's awesome. And maybe tomorrow when we finish tomorrow, you will have much more understanding of that because this interstitium connects all organs, meaning it is present throughout our entire living. So we have matrix in our scalp, we have matrix on our toes. When we apply a stimulus, as I said, it travels through the whole matrix, reaches all organs. I mean, imagine having a mask, knowing that the person is probably feeling that is under some sort of cosmetic procedure, but it is not. It's really deeper than that. It's accessing the brain, it's accessing the tissues, it's accessing the web called the autonomic nervous system. And you're sending light, you're sending blue light, you're sending green light. Look at that. That is a C-section scar that I am treating with the band. Why am I treating that? Because if there is a blockage here, there's going to be a blockage up here. It just follows hermetic rules. As above, so below, right? And there are many scientific reports that nowadays recognize the importance of this matrix. Recent studies have used probe-based confocal laser endomicroscopy, I have to read that, to investigate the structure and distribution of the interstitium. In other words, now they are studying in living tissues, okay, how is that transmission of the life process? We don't study dead tissue. A biopsy is a dead tissue. How can we study dead tissue to prove life or to prove the living force or to study the living force? It's impossible. Whenever you have had a biopsy, that tissue is dead, okay? It's out of the matrix. And there are some studies you can go into PubMed and check about these things, because I'm not really exaggerating. It's really important what we have in our hands. So whenever there is an energy interference in the matrix, okay, you can explain the client in so many different ways. I really like the idea of the orchestra, okay? Imagine a finely tuned orchestra. When one instrument is out of tune, the entire harmony suffers. And the clients understand this concept really well. So external and internal factors can cause energy interference or dampening in this system. Such interference disrupts cell communication, metabolism, and repair mechanism. So the most important thing for me that I would like to convey onto you is try to look where that interference is. Sometimes we look for things in the very place where the client is referring that there's the pain. For example, I have a client suffering from a knee pain. You look to see what's going on in the knee. But in naturopathy in my country, we have a saying. The saying is this, maybe you want to take note. Where the client thinks the problem is where it is not. So the moment they come, suffering, for example, of a knee, I don't look for the knee. Sometimes the knee itself heals or improves by doing distant stuff, by accessing to our brains, okay, through the autonomic nervous system. We use a transducer. We send subtle frequency vibrations through the body's bones and the autonomic nervous system. This is a folkloric thing that my clients really like. Okay, but everything has to have a ritual. Whenever we skip the ritual, the client feels like something is not working here. So in my own case, for my culture, I'm really making sure that I have a long extension cord for my transducer. This is a form of bioresonance, I explained to them, which means that technology communicates with the biofield. Okay, that word is now very famous. Okay, the biofield. You can call it so many different ways. But look at this image of the inside of the skull. The skull is like that, seen under a microscope. It's hollow and it has waves. That's how the sound waves propagate. That's how the information propagates through these cells in our bone matrix. So that is so important for us. In the same way that we use an ultrasound transducer, okay? When you go to a doctor's office to get an ultrasound, they use a transducer. We also use a transducer, so ours is just osteoconductance transducer. So my clients like that idea very much.
What if supporting your vision could be as easy as placing a strip on your tongue? AO Vision is more than just convenient. It's an advanced nutrition for your eyes, featuring clinically informed blends of lutein, zeaxanthin, astaxanthin, vitamin C, vitamin E, McKeeberry, blueberry, and bilberry. These ingredients work together to protect your retina, lens, and macula from the stress of screens, sunlight, and aging. When paired with tools like AO Scan, AO Illuminator, or Blue, AO Vision becomes part of a complete system to enhance the gut-brain-eye connection, supporting clearer vision, sharper focus, and even better emotional balance. Daily screen time is here to stay. So is environmental stress. AO Vision helps you stay ahead, protecting your eyes and nourishing your future sight with the science-backed, naturally sourced ingredients. With a delicious berry blast flavor and a clean, dissolvable delivery, AO Vision turns eye care into a daily ritual your body will love.
Want to see the world more clearly? Start with AO Vision by Solex. Your eyes will thank you.